Welcome to today's deep dive. We are digging into a really incredibly insightful piece today by Alex Seven.
Yeah, it's called Deep Dive, Risk-First GRC as a real operating system, and it is quite the read.
It really is. I mean, the whole mission of our deep dive today is to basically rescue you from the soul-crushing, bureaucratic theater of traditional compliance programs.
Which I think we can all agree is just, well, it's a painful place to be.
Oh, totally. I mean, think about it. Have you ever felt like your company's compliance program, like, say, a SOC2 or an ISO certification, just produces more screenshots and paperwork than actual operational competence?
Right, like you pass the audit with flying colors, everybody celebrates, but...
But if a ransomware attack hits tomorrow, everyone would still just be in a total panic. It's wild.
Exactly.
So we're going to reveal this streamlined, resilient operating system for risk management that actually works when disaster strikes. I know the word compliance sounds incredibly dry on the surface.
Oh, it usually puts people to sleep.
Right. But this framework flips the whole concept on its head. It makes it this fascinating study in real-world resilience.
It really does. And to understand the solution here, we first have to sort of understand why this sense of panic exists, even after a successful audit.
Yeah, why do we feel so unsafe when the paperwork says we're perfectly secure?
Well, the root cause is this backward design that the author calls Framework-First GRC.
Which is how almost everybody does it, right?
Yeah, exactly. A company will basically buy a platform, pull up a framework like SOC2 or IPAW, and just start blindly mapping controls to clauses.
Clause 1 needs a policy, so we write one. Clause 2 needs a control, so we build one.
Precisely. And what this creates is this massive issue called control sprawl.
Oh, yeah, the control sprawl. So teams end up creating separate, isolated controls for SOC2, and then, separate ones for ISO, and then even more for customer questionnaires.
Right, and gathering evidence just becomes this exercise in sheer volume rather than meaning. I mean, you literally have engineers stapling screenshots to tickets once a quarter.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I was thinking about this. Setting up your business based purely on a compliance framework. It's like a student studying solely to pass a multiple-choice test by memorizing flashcards.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. Like they pass the exam, the auditor gives them an A, but the moment they are put in a real-world job, they have absolutely no idea how to actually do the work.
Yeah, they are technically compliant, but they are completely fragile in the real world.
Exactly. So if the flashcard method leaves a business that fragile, we have to kind of restructure the curriculum, right?
We do. And that leads us to the core thesis here, which is Risk-First GRC. It's a completely new order of operations.
So how does this new order actually work?
Well, it's 4 steps. First, risk defines what matters.
Okay.
Second, control objectives define what absolutely must be true.
Got it.
Third, controls and evidence prove that it's true. And finally, frameworks become merely the reporting layer at the very end.
So we start with the risk. But we're not talking about those generic, vague risks you see on a spreadsheet, right?
No, not at all. Vague categories like data breach or outage, they are entirely useless here. You need what the piece calls a scenario-grade risk.
Right, because if you just say data breach, nobody knows how to defend against that. You have to identify your crown jewels first.
Exactly, like your integration tokens or your audit logs. So instead of data breach, you use a highly specific scenario.
What's the example the author gave?
It was compromised admin identity leads to production configuration changes and service disruption during renewal season.
See, now that is specific. You know exactly what the threat is and what the impact is.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why frameworks fail us initially. Frameworks don't know your business's specific bottlenecks,
Right, they don't know what drives your revenue.
Exactly. They don't know what failure would cause the most customer churn. But scenarios do.
Okay, but wait. Let me challenge you on this for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we are focusing only on our specific business risks, and we are literally mapping the framework last, doesn't that mean we risk missing a technical requirement and failing the audit? I mean, it feels kind of terrifying to just ignore SOC2 until the very end.
But you don't ignore the framework. That's the beauty of it. You use what's called a framework crosswalk.
A framework crosswalk?
Yeah. So instead of building a weak control just to satisfy SOC2, you build one highly effective risk-grounded control, like, say, privilege access governance.
Okay, so you build a really strong admin access system.
Right. And then you use this crosswalk to satisfy SOC2, ISO, and HIPAA simultaneously. It eliminates all that duplication.
Oh, wow. So you just point all the different auditors to that one strong control. That makes so much sense.
It really does.
But theory is great, right? How does this actually hold up when the auditors literally arrive at the door?
Well, the text actually gives us a great real-world use case for this. A composite sauce company.
Right, I remember this. They had, what, like 650 employees?
Yeah, 650 employees, but a tiny GRC team of just 2 people.
2 people. That sounds like a nightmare.
It would be under the old model.
Yeah.
Especially because they were facing a SOC2 renewal in exactly 120 days.
So how did they survive that?
They had to shift their entire evidence posture. They moved from evidence collection, which is that frantic scramble to take screenshots.
Right, the end of quarter panic.
Exactly.
Right.
They moved from that to evidence generation, where evidence is just a natural byproduct of running the business well.
So the systems just generate the proof automatically?
Yes, they use a standardized evidence pattern, objective, proof, frequency, validation, and governance.
Okay, the restore testing example really stood out to me here.
Oh, yeah, that's a perfect example.
Because in the old days, to prove your backups worked, you just showed the auditor that the backup job ran, right?
Right. You just showed them a green check mark on a dashboard, which is just basic IT housekeeping.
It doesn't prove you can actually recover the system if it goes down.
Exactly. So what this small team did was institute quarterly, witnessed, restore tests for their Tier 0 services.
Witnessed, that's the key word.
Yes. Someone actually watches the engineering team restore the service to a staging environment to prove recovery capability.
And they did something similar for privileged roles, right?
They did. Instead of an annual review, they did weekly sampled validation for privileged role changes. It totally prevents privilege creep.
That is so smart. But wait, we have to talk about their secret weapon here, the auditor notes field.
Oh, the auditor notes field is brilliant.
Because normally you just hand an auditor a raw export from Okta or something, right?
Yeah, just thousands of rows of data that the auditor has to decipher.
Right. But instead, the GRC team uses the specific field to actually tell the story.
Exactly. They write something like, this evidence supports the account takeover scenario, it demonstrates enforcement, and it's validated monthly.
You are basically holding the auditor's hand and telling them exactly why this proof matters.
You're doing the translation for them.
It's brilliant. But okay, if this risk-first model is so incredibly streamlined and efficient, why isn't every single company operating this way?
Well, because implementing it forces some highly uncomfortable conversations.
Ah, the organizational friction.
Yeah. Moving to risk first is tough because teams naturally prefer jumping straight into technical solutions.
Right. It's easier to buy a tool than to have a hard talk about who actually owns a risk.
Exactly. Look at the MFA-enabled checkbox. People love checking that box.
Well, because it feels like you solved the problem.
But MFA-enabled isn't a true control objective. If your goal is preventing an admin compromise, you need so much more than that.
You need, like, phishing-resistant auth.
Yes. Phishing-resistant auth, time-bound elevation of privileges, rapid revocation workflows. It's complex.
And people don't want to deal with that complexity. It reminds me of that vendor dependency example in the text.
It's one where no one owned the risk.
Yes. They passed SOC because they sent the vendor a questionnaire, but when an outage hit...
There was no failover plan.
Exactly. And no contractual exit path. Everyone just pointed fingers at each other.
This raises an important question, though, because exceptions to the rules are going to happen.
Right. You can't have a perfect system.
Exactly. Exceptions aren't inherently bad, but hidden exceptions are what destroy companies.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because when you bring these carve-outs into the light...
Like a legacy integration that just literally cannot use MFA.
Exactly. Under the old model, you'd hide that. But now you bring it into the light, you give it an expiration date.
And suddenly it turns a shady company secret into an actual governed, time-bound business decision.
It's such a mature way to handle technical debt.
It really is.
Okay, so we have this robust, risk-first operating system. It's working great. But what happens when we introduce AI into the mix?
The AI factor. It changes the model in 2 ways simultaneously.
Okay, break that down for me.
First, it acts as a massive operational accelerator. And second, it introduces an entirely new risk surface that has to be governed.
Let's talk about the accelerator part first. How does it speed things up?
Well, AI can detect control drift instantly. Like if you have missing log sources, AI flags it immediately.
Oh, wow. So instead of finding out during a quarterly audit, you know right away.
Right. It can even summarize evidence for those auditor notes we talked about. It shifts you from quarterly assurance to continuous assurance.
That's incredible. But there have to be guardrails, right? You can't just let an AI talk to an auditor.
Absolutely not. The strict rule is AI drafts, humans approve.
AI drafts, humans approve.
Yes, AI summarizes, systems prove. AI must never, ever be the evidence itself.
Right, the evidence has to be the authoritative system output, like a sum query or an export.
Exactly. If the AI is generating the evidence, you've lost all defensibility.
Okay, so that's the accelerator side. What about the new risk surface?
Well, now you have to track new scenario-grade risks. What if an employee pastes regulated customer data into a public AI tool?
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time now.
Or what if one of your vendors updates their terms and starts training their AI on your proprietary data?
That is terrifying.
It is, which is why NIST and ISO are already formalizing AI governance frameworks as we speak.
So what does this all mean for the listener right now? Does AI just replace this whole framework we just built?
No, it definitely doesn't replace it. What it does is compress the cycle time.
Okay, so just everything moves faster.
Right, you're moving from a quarterly rhythm to a continuous one, which means your scenario refreshes have to become a constant necessity.
Wow. Okay, let's pull all of this together. If we synthesize the core message here.
Yeah, mature governance isn't a documentation exercise.
Exactly, it's a decision-making system. And I want to tie this directly to you, the listener, whether you're prepping for an executive meeting or you're running a team or you just want to be insanely well-informed.
Right, you have to look at your own workflows.
Ask yourself if the systems you rely on are optimized for reality or if they're just optimized to pass a checklist.
It's a tough question, but a necessary one.
It is. And I want to leave you with one final chilling thought to ponder. If your organization suffered a cascading failure from a critical AI vendor tomorrow.
Which is becoming more likely every day.
Exactly. Would your compliant checklist save you? Or would you realize far too late that your paperwork is totally perfect, but your operational reality is entirely empty?
A scary thought.
It is. Challenge yourself this week to look at your daily workflows and strip away the theater. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.